I mean, there are so many stories which can be very easily told, but if a story can be easily told, then I do not want to do it. The more it is difficult, the more it challenges me. That is what I'd like to take up, because for me now, right now, after the last 7 or 8 films, you may mentioned Red Alert. From Red Alert till today, I've made about 8 or 10 very important films.
Where does the story begin? Where do you get the stories from? Because you have worked across so many, such a wide variety of stories, right from Red Alert to mainstream cinema to everything. I mean, where do you get these stories? Literature, society, where exactly?
Well, I keep my ears and eyes open, and most of them now emanate from news items or actual occurrences in various parts of India. Because I believe that even if you're making an international film with a universal appeal, it has to be rooted in the country of origin, and here in our case, in India. So there are many interesting stories which probably go unnoticed even in the headlines of a newspaper, because nobody sees the cinematic, I would say, the possibility of these news stories. And that's where my radar is. And I try and sort of zero in on stories that are very human, very socially relevant, very challenging. I mean, there are so many stories which can be very easily told, but if a story can be easily told, then I do not want to do it. The more it is difficult, more it challenges me. That is what I'd like to take up, because for me now, right now, after the last 7 or 8 films, you may mentioned Red Alert. From Red Alert till today, I've made about 8 or 10 very important films, and I'm leaving out my mainstream cinema totally out of this. So for me now, it is very important that I grow as a director. For me, my own personal growth is more important than the world, sort of giving me some kind of an eligibility certificate. So that is where it is right now. So I'm looking for rare subjects like my last film. I'll give you an example. My new film, which I've just completed, is a film on active euthanasia. Now, there are a lot of elderly senior citizens all over the world who are taking a very different look at life and death after what happened during the last 1.5 years to the world. During the pandemic, the life and death took a very different perspective altogether. And a lot of them feel that, at the age of 70, when they're still healthy, when their organs are still functioning, and they do not have any social obligations and responsibilities, that would be the right time to go. And this is the story of these senior citizens appealing to the government or to the president of India to legalize active euthanasia. And I've taken all those cases and put it into the life of one couple that is played by Dilip Prabhavalkar and Rohini Hattangadi. And the film is called It's Time to Go. It's in Marathi, and it's set in Mumbai, and that is what it is. So now, this has got no reference point anyway. We've had films on mercy killing and passive euthanasia, but none on active euthanasia. So that is what I'm really looking at, something which is really, really out of the box, and people don't zero in on it or think of it as a potential motion picture. So that is what drives me to decide on what subject to choose, because that is the starting point. If that point is not correct, then you can make all the best efforts in the world, but probably not end up making the best film in the world.
How do you convert these situations, these germs of stories into real stories? What does it take to add the subtext, the side stories, and how do you give shape to one single news item? Into how does it transform from a news item to a story? What is the process?
See, most of the time when I pick up a story and I sort of bounce it to some people, even screenplay writers, I'm told that. there is a danger of this becoming a documentary, you know, because when Me Sindhutai Sabkal, when I made the film Me Sindhutai Sabkal on the life of a woman who picks up abandoned kids from the street and gives them shelter, I was told that this would take the shape of a documentary. You are venturing into docu territory. And that is something I did not want to do, because what's the point in making a feature film, a documentary, and calling it a feature? So at the same time, the catch 22 was that I could not change anything that was real, true, what had occurred. And, just for the sake of not making it a documentary, I could not over dramatize things and take it over the top. So that was the balance I had to strike between the real facts and dramatizing. Now, how do you dramatize a real life situation? How do you recreate it? You know, you recreate it with actors. For example, in Bittersweet, all that I did was take six actors into the sugarcane fields and throw them in there amidst the real sugarcane cutters. The majority of faces that you see in Bittersweet are the real people. There are only five or six actors in there. So I had to blend the real and the dramatic, because I can't expect the real sugarcane cutters to, deliver the dialogue or feel the same way as some actors would portray them. But it would be difficult for them to do that. But for my actors to look at them and speak it the way they speak would be a much easier way to sort of, film it. So that's what I do. You know, I somewhere blur the line between reality and drama and get the two together. And there have been times when people have asked me that are these actors or real sugarcane cutters, and I think that is my biggest reward at that point of time, the biggest triumph for the film.
Let's move a little beyond. When we create film projects, the scripting is done. You have shot the film. Is there a method when you start editing the timeline? You know, what is your brief to the editor, or at what stage does the editor come into play? Do you make them read the script before you shoot, or take their advice, or you just send them the short footage, let them live with it and find their own interpretation?
None of these.
Okay.
I Yes, of course, my the person. Basically, I edit my own films. But the reason why I edit my own films is because my films are edited on paper, on in the script itself. So you know what's a long shot, you know what's a close, what is what, and all that my editor has to do is virtually pick up the machine and put it together, because it's all there. It's basically getting it to assembly job. And it also helps me in a great way when I say I want a wide shot, and then I just want this particular cut. When my cameraman or someone comes and asks me, oh, don't you want to close here, don't you want to close it, don't you want to cover the scene from that side, I say no, I'm very very sure my film, I've seen the film, all that I'm doing is copying it from here onto a screen. So that state of preparedness, that this I actually learned from the late Rishikesh Mukherjee. He told me, Ananth, I edit my films on paper. It saves a lot of time in the editing table. Then I watched him actually edit, because those days it was film. So I actually watched him edit, and how where does he place a reaction shot? Is the reaction shot at all necessary when the other person is having a long piece to say? Do you really want to cut that and spoil that mood for him? So in Bittersweet, if you watch the film, you will have a 5.5 minute scene between the daughter and the mother, and they discuss something very volatile about their lives. They're sitting by on a rock by the river, and I did not feel like cutting into reactions, because I thought that will cut away from that particular thread of thought that each character is going through. Now, when you disturb that, it's like throwing a pebble into a very peaceful lake, and then you create the ripples. Why do you want to do that? So that scene actually held. And a lot of jury members and a lot of people in the audience came to me and said, we did not even realize that it was a single shot. It was not cut. So that is what ultimately, when you have engaged the audience, when you've told them, when you're trying to capture their emotions, they do not realize where you've cut. And see, most of the time it's like, the cutting is so wild. It looks like the director or the writer is not very confident about what they're writing, so they're distracting the audience. Sometimes you feel like distracting people and saying, cover up your faults with this and this and this. No, I do not believe in that. So my films are edited on paper. My co-editor who sits there and edits it has everything readied for a lineup. Of course, you do a little bit of honing. You say, maybe reduce the shot by a few seconds, or increase this particular look by a few seconds, let that look stay. So the stays and the cuts that happen as a final edit. So when I move into the edit, the film has already been edited, because my editor works online on the set, or on location, so it's edited. So we go in there, and the studio owner fumes because expects me to do 100 hours of edit, and I get out of the edit room in just 3 or 4 days. I don't use much of his time. So that's what it is. So editing is something that has already happened in the mind while I'm writing.